Sam lived on a ranch that had been in his family for 3 generations. His grandfather had built the first wooden fence around the land. His father had raised cattle there. And now Sam cared for horses and chickens on the wide, open property. The ranch stretched far and wide with golden fields that turned green in the spring, and a gravel road that wound toward the main gate. The gate itself was simple, made of strong wood with iron hinges, painted white though the paint had begun to fade with age. It wasn't just a gate. It was a symbol of Sam's family's hard work, the line that marked their home from the rest of the world. Sam valued peace more than anything. He woke early each morning to feed the animals, check on the fences, and make sure the ranch was in order. The quiet was his reward, broken only by the sound of birds or the soft neigh of his favorite horse, Daisy. After a day of work, he would sit on his porch in the evening, looking out across the fields, grateful for the calm life he lived. But not everyone respected that calm. Karen, the leader of the neighborhood's homeowners association, had made a habit of cutting across Sam's land. Her house was on the other side of the ranch, and instead of driving the proper route around the main road, she found it faster to push open Sam's gate and cut through his private property. To her, it was just a shortcut, but to Sam, it was an invasion. The first time Sam noticed it, he thought it was an accident. He saw tire marks in the dirt near the barn and wondered if someone had gotten lost. But when it happened again the next day and again the day after, he realized it was no mistake. His gate was being opened, not by him, and the tracks showed the same small car passing through. Sam stayed quiet at first, not wanting conflict. He fixed the gate each evening and reminded himself that people sometimes acted without thinking. One morning, as Sam was loading hay into the barn, he heard the sound of an engine. He stepped outside just in time to see a small silver car push open his gate and drive straight across the ranch road. He recognized the driver immediately. It was Karen, wearing large sunglasses and sitting tall behind the wheel, her face set in a proud expression. She didn't wave or stop to explain. She simply drove through as if she owned the place, leaving a trail of dust behind her car. Sam felt his jaw tighten. He set down the hay and walked to the gate, checking the hinges. They were loose again. One nearly cracked from being pushed too hard. His heart sank. That gate had stood strong for years, but now it was being damaged by someone who didn't even care enough to ask permission. That evening, Sam walked over to Karen's house. He found her watering flowers in her front yard, the same confident look on her face as before. "Karen," Sam said calmly, "I need to ask you to stop driving through my ranch. That gate is private. It's not a public road." Karen didn't even pause. She set down the watering can and folded her arms. "Sam, it's the fastest way to get to town. I'm not hurting anything by driving through. You've got plenty of land and the road is wide enough for a car. Why should it matter to you?" "It matters because it's my property," Sam replied firmly. "That gate isn't made for cars to push through. It's already breaking and I don't want people cutting across my land." Karen let out a short laugh. "Oh, don't be dramatic. You should be glad someone is using that road. Otherwise, it's just sitting there doing nothing. Besides, I'm the head of the HOA and I know the rules around here. You can't stop me from driving through." Sam's patience was tested, but he refused to raise his voice. "The HOA has no control over my ranch. It's been in my family long before the neighborhood was even built. This land isn't part of your association." Karen waved her hand dismissively as if brushing away his words like dust. "Well, we'll see about that. I don't have time to argue. I'll keep using the gate. It's convenient." She turned back to her flowers, leaving Sam standing there with a heavy feeling in his chest. He walked home slowly, the sound of crickets filling the night air. He thought about how unfair it was that someone could ignore respect so easily. He had tried to be polite, to explain calmly, but it hadn't worked. Each day that followed, Karen continued her shortcut. Each morning, Sam found the gate bent a little more, the hinges weaker, the paint scraped. He repaired it over and over, but he knew he couldn't keep doing it forever. Weeks passed. Karen showed no signs of stopping. The ranch no longer felt peaceful in the same way. Every time Sam heard the sound of her car engine, he tensed, waiting for her to appear at the gate. He noticed the animals growing nervous too. Daisy the horse would toss her head when the car passed, and the chickens would scatter across the yard. One afternoon, Sam tried again to stop Karen. He placed a sign on the gate, painted clearly in red letters, "Private property. Do not enter." He made sure it was large enough to be seen from the road. He even put a smaller sign below it that said, "Please respect this gate." The next morning, Sam sat on the porch with a cup of coffee, waiting to see what Karen would do. Sure enough, he heard the hum of her engine. Her silver car slowed as it reached the gate. She leaned out the window, read the sign, and then, smiling to herself, she pushed the gate open with her bumper and drove through anyway. The sign swung wildly as the gate creaked under the force. Dust rose in the air as her car disappeared down the ranch road. Sam sighed. His attempts at kindness were wasted. The signs, the conversations, the warnings, nothing had worked. Karen wasn't simply careless. She was determined to ignore him. It wasn't just about the shortcut anymore. It was about control. She seemed to enjoy proving that she could do what she wanted, no matter what Sam said. That night, Sam sat by the fireplace, staring at the flames. He thought about his grandfather, who had built the first gate by hand. He remembered his father's words. "A man's land is his responsibility. If you don't protect it, no one else will." Sam realized he couldn't let this continue. If Karen refused to listen, he would have to find another way to make her understand. The ranch was more than just land. It was a home, a place of memories, a place where respect mattered. And if Karen would not give that respect freely, Sam knew he would have to teach her a lesson in a way she could not ignore. For the next several days, he began to plan. The days after Sam made his decision were long and thoughtful. He still carried out his ranch work as usual, but his mind often wandered back to the problem with Karen. Every morning he woke before sunrise, carried hay to the barn, checked the fences, and filled the water troughs for the animals. Yet even in the quiet moments when the mist hung low over the fields, he could not shake the sound of her car engine in his memory. Sam's patience had always been one of his strongest traits. He was not the kind of man who rushed into anger or made quick choices without thinking them through. But patience had limits, and Karen had been pushing those limits further each day. It was not only about the broken gate or the ruts in the dirt road. It was about respect, and Karen had made it clear that she had none for him or his land. Still, before taking drastic measures, Sam wanted to try one last round of warnings. He believed in fairness, and he wanted to be sure that when he acted, he had done everything possible to avoid conflict. The first warning came in the form of another sign. The original sign had been ignored, so Sam built a larger one. He used a wide wooden board, painted it bright yellow, and wrote in bold black letters, "Private property. Entry not allowed." Beneath it, he added a second line, "Please respect the gate. Do not drive through." He placed the sign high above the gate where no one could miss it. That afternoon, Sam stood by the porch, wiping sweat from his forehead after working in the field. He watched the road carefully, knowing Karen's car would appear soon. Right on time, he saw the silver vehicle approach. The car slowed, the driver's window slid down, and Karen looked up at the new sign. For a moment, Sam thought perhaps she might stop this time. But then, with a small smirk on her face, she nudged the gate open with her bumper once again and drove forward, as if the sign was invisible. Sam felt disappointment settle in his chest. He had expected it, but part of him had still hoped. He turned back into the house, shaking his head. The second warning came a few days later. This time, Sam decided words might carry more weight than signs. He walked to Karen's house again, though he dreaded the conversation. When he knocked on the door, Karen answered, wearing a neat dress and holding a cup of tea. "Karen," Sam began, keeping his tone polite, "I noticed you are still driving through my ranch even with the new sign. I need you to stop. The gate cannot handle the constant pushing, and my animals are disturbed by the car." Karen raised her eyebrows, unimpressed. "Sam, I told you before. It is the fastest way to town. I don't see the problem. Your land is big enough, and your gate is nothing special. I am not causing harm." "You are causing harm," Sam replied firmly, though without raising his voice. "The gate is breaking, the hinges are loose, and the road is not meant for constant traffic. It may seem small to you, but it is my responsibility to protect the ranch. Please do not drive through again." Karen let out a laugh that cut into the quiet evening. "Oh, Sam, you are making this into something it is not. You should be grateful someone is using that old road. Otherwise, it just sits there. Besides, as head of the HOA, I have more say in this neighborhood than you realize. If I want to drive through, I will." Sam shook his head. "This land is not part of your HOA. The rules you speak of do not apply here. My family owned this ranch before the neighborhood even existed. It is my decision, and I have said no." Karen's smile faded into a tight line, but she did not back down. "We will see about that," she said coldly, before closing the door in his face. Sam walked back home under the stars, his boots crunching against the gravel. The conversation left a sour taste in his mouth. He had spoken clearly and fairly, yet she had refused to listen. It was becoming more obvious that Karen did not ignore him by accident. She ignored him on purpose, perhaps even enjoying the power she felt by breaking his rules. The third warning was unspoken but visible. Sam decided to place a chain across the gate, not locked but heavy enough that it would send a message. If Karen truly respected nothing else, perhaps the inconvenience of getting out of her car to move the chain would discourage her. He fixed it in the morning, looping it across the gate and securing it on each side. Later that day, Sam was mending a fence post when he heard the sound of her car again. He straightened up, wiping his hands on his jeans, and watched from a distance. Karen's car slowed at the gate, her eyes narrowing when she saw the chain. Instead of stopping, she climbed out of the car, unhooked the chain, tossed it into the dirt, and shoved the gate open with her bumper once more. She drove through, leaving the chain behind, swinging on the ground like a discarded toy. Sam bent down later to pick it up, dust clinging to his hands. His patience was nearly gone now. He had given signs, words, and even physical barriers as warnings, yet Karen refused them all. Each night, as Sam sat by the fire, he thought about his father's words again. Respect is earned, but if someone refuses to give it, you must stand firm. Sam knew that if he allowed Karen to continue, others might follow her example. Soon his land could become nothing more than a public road, with cars passing through whenever they pleased. The thought filled him with unease. The ranch had always been a place of trust and quiet. His animals trusted him to keep them safe. The land trusted him to keep it cared for. Even his neighbors, those who lived nearby but respected his boundaries, trusted him to maintain the peace of the area. If he failed to protect the gate, he would fail that trust. Sam did not want to be unkind. He had no wish for conflict or anger. But Karen had left him no choice. She had been given chance after chance, and each one she had thrown aside as if it meant nothing. The repeated warnings had shown him something important. Karen was not going to stop on her own. One evening, Sam sat on the porch with a notebook in hand. He began to sketch out ideas, thinking carefully about what he could do. He did not want to damage her car or cause her harm. That was not his way. But he needed to create something that would finally make her understand that his ranch was off limits. The moon rose high, casting silver light across the fields as Sam worked. His pencil scratched across the paper, drawing lines and shapes, erasing and redrawing until the plan began to take form. His trap would be clever but harmless, firm but fair. He wanted Karen to remember it, not as an act of anger, but as a lesson she would never forget. The night grew late, but Sam did not feel tired. For the first time in weeks, he felt a sense of direction. The repeated warnings were behind him. He had given every chance for peace, and now it was time to prepare for the next step. Sam woke before the sun, as he always did. The cool air of the morning wrapped around him as he stepped outside, the ground still damp from the night dew. Daisy, his horse, lifted her head and gave a soft sound when she saw him. The chickens clucked as they waited for their feed. The ranch was alive and calm, but Sam's mind was restless. For weeks he had tried warnings, signs, and even chains, but Karen ignored them all. She treated his land like her shortcut and his words like empty wind. That morning, as Sam tossed hay into the barn, an idea began to form. It started as a small spark in his mind, but with each pitch of hay and each creak of the barn door, the spark grew stronger. He realized he could not keep fighting Karen with the same methods. She had proven she would not listen to words. He needed something different, something clever, something she would never forget. Sam leaned against the barn wall, wiping his brow with the back of his hand. His father's words came back to him once again. If someone will not respect your land, you must teach them why it matters. He knew he could not harm her or her car. That was not the lesson he wanted to teach. What he needed was a trap that was safe but unforgettable, one that would show Karen that his gate was not a toy she could push open whenever she liked. He walked toward the gate, the morning sun rising slowly behind him. The white paint on the wood was chipped and faded, the hinges groaning from weeks of strain. He ran his hand along the top rail, thinking about all the times Karen had forced her way through. A plan began to take shape in his mind, and he allowed himself a small smile. The idea was simple but effective. If Karen wanted to drive through his gate, he would give her exactly what she expected, at first. Then he would surprise her with something that looked the same, but was not what she thought. Sam decided to build a second gate behind the first one. From the road, it would look just like the usual ranch entrance, painted the same color, the same size, placed in the same line. But unlike the first gate, which swung open easily, this second one would not move at all. It would be fixed firmly into the ground, solid and unyielding. Sam imagined the moment clearly. Karen would push open the first gate, smiling at her little shortcut as always. She would drive forward, expecting the open road, only to meet the second gate head-on. Her car would not be harmed badly, just stopped suddenly, her pride dented more than her bumper. She would realize at last that Sam's land was not hers to use freely. The more Sam thought about it, the more he liked the plan. It was clever without being cruel. It was firm without being violent. It was exactly the kind of lesson Karen needed. That day, Sam gathered supplies. He pulled old wooden beams from the storage shed, checked the iron brackets, and measured the posts. He made a list of nails, bolts, and tools he would need to buy from the hardware store. As he worked, his animals wandered nearby, curious about his sudden energy. Daisy snorted as she watched him measure a post, and the chickens pecked at the dust where his hammer had fallen. The project took days to prepare. Sam built the second gate carefully, making sure it matched the first in every way. He painted it the same white, smoothing the strokes so no difference could be seen from the road. He measured the height and width with care, aligning it so perfectly that anyone driving through would think it was the original gate. But unlike the swinging gate, this one was anchored into the earth with heavy posts and set deep into concrete. It would not move no matter how much pressure was applied. Each evening, as the sun set and the sky turned gold, Sam worked quietly with steady hands. He felt almost like his grandfather must have felt when building the first fence around the ranch, calm, patient, and determined. He was not just making a trap for Karen. He was protecting his family's land, just as generations before him had done. By the end of the week, the second gate was complete. Sam stood back and looked at it proudly. From the outside, no one could tell the difference. The two gates stood in line, one just behind the other, their white paint gleaming faintly in the sunlight. The first gate, the one Karen had pushed through countless times, was left unlocked, swinging freely as always. Sam had even oiled the hinges so it would open smoothly. Everything was designed to lure Karen into thinking nothing had changed. Sam felt a sense of quiet satisfaction. He had given her signs. He had given her words. He had given her chains. She had ignored them all. Now he was ready to give her a lesson she would remember. The next step was to wait. Sam knew Karen's habits well by now. She liked to leave for town in the morning, cutting across his ranch road to save time. He could already imagine the sound of her car rolling up to the gate, the way she would nudge it open with her bumper, and the confident smile she always wore as she drove through. But this time, her confidence would lead her into a surprise. The night before, Sam sat on his porch, the stars bright above him. The field stretched wide and silent, the crickets chirping softly in the grass. He thought about everything that had led to this moment. The broken hinges, the tossed chain, the smirk on Karen's face when she ignored his signs. He had not wanted to come to this point, but it was clear there had been no other choice. Karen would not listen until she was forced to face the truth. The next morning arrived crisp and cool. Sam fed the animals as usual, moving with quiet hands but an alert mind. He kept glancing toward the road, waiting for the familiar silver car. His heart beat faster than normal, not with fear but with anticipation. He had set the stage, and now the moment of truth was near. The sun rose higher, casting light across the ranch. The gate stood ready, the trap complete. Sam poured himself a cup of coffee and sat on the porch, listening for the sound he knew so well. It came faint at first, then louder, the hum of an engine approaching from the distance. Sam leaned forward, his eyes fixed on the gate. He saw the silver car appear, rolling down the road with its usual speed. Karen was behind the wheel, sunglasses on her face, her head held high. She slowed only slightly as she reached the gate, just as she always did. The first gate swung open easily, welcoming her into what she believed was her shortcut. Sam's lips curved into the smallest of smiles. The trap was ready, What would happen next would not be cruel. It would not be violent. It would simply be unforgettable. The silver car rolled closer to the ranch gate, dust rising softly behind its wheels. Sam sat on his porch with his coffee in hand, his eyes steady on the road. He had been waiting for this moment with a calm patience, though his heart beat faster than usual. He had built the second gate with care, matching it so perfectly to the first that no one could tell the difference. From where Karen sat in her car, it looked like the same old entrance she had pushed through many times before. Karen slowed her car slightly as she reached the first gate. The wooden frame creaked but swung open smoothly, just as Sam had planned. She gave a quick smile to herself, the kind of smile that carried pride, as if she had once again beaten the system. She nudged the bumper forward, the gate swinging wide, and she drove onto the ranch road with her usual confidence. Sam leaned back in his chair, silent, watching the scene unfold. Daisy the horse stood near the fence, her ears turning toward the sound of the car. The chickens scattered a little, flapping their wings, but Sam's eyes never left the road. The car moved forward, gaining a little speed after clearing the first gate. Karen's face was calm, her sunglasses hiding her eyes, but her posture told the story. She was relaxed, certain that nothing could stop her. She had ignored the signs, ignored the chains, ignored every word Sam had spoken. She believed the shortcut was hers to use whenever she wished. But then it happened. The second gate stood firmly in place, fixed deep into the ground. Karen did not see it until it was too late. From her view, it looked like the road was open, but suddenly her car came to a sharp stop. The front bumper struck the solid wood with a loud thud, not enough to break the car, but enough to jolt it suddenly. Karen's body leaned forward against the seatbelt, her sunglasses sliding down her nose, her mouth opened in shock. She blinked, staring at the wooden frame that had stopped her. For a moment she sat frozen, gripping the wheel tightly, her breath quick. Then she reached out, pressing the horn once in frustration, though the sound echoed uselessly across the empty ranch. Sam rose slowly from his chair and began walking toward the gate. His steps were steady, his face calm, but inside he felt the weight of victory. He had not damaged her car badly. He had not hurt her. But he had finally given her a lesson she could not ignore. Karen climbed out of the car, brushing dust from her dress. She walked to the front, her eyes scanning the second gate. Her expression shifted from confusion to disbelief. She touched the wood with her hand, pulling at it, trying to see if it would swing open like the first one. But it did not move. She pulled harder, her face turning red with effort, but the gate stood firm. She turned around and saw Sam approaching. For a moment she did not speak. Then, in a voice that tried to sound strong but carried a crack of embarrassment, she said, "What is this? Why are there two gates here?" Sam stopped a few feet away, his hands resting easily at his sides. "That gate is fixed," he said simply. "It does not open. You have been told many times this road is private. You ignored the signs, the chains, and my words. Now you know it is not your shortcut. It is my land, and it will stay that way." Karen's face twisted with frustration. She looked back at her car, the bumper pressed lightly against the wood. Then she turned to Sam again. "You tricked me," she said, her voice sharp. Sam nodded once. "Yes, I did. But I did not harm you. I did not harm your car. I only wanted you to understand what you would not hear before. This is not your road. It never was." Karen folded her arms tightly across her chest. She shifted her weight as if looking for a reply, but none came. Her pride had been hit harder than her car. For the first time since this began, she stood silent, her eyes lowered, unable to meet Sam's steady gaze. The ranch was quiet except for the sound of the wind moving through the tall grass. Daisy gave a soft snort as if she too was watching the lesson unfold. Sam let the silence sit for a long moment, giving Karen time to think. Finally, Karen spoke again, though her voice was softer. "You did not need to do this. You could have just let me pass. It saves me time." Sam shook his head. "It may save you time, but it cost me my peace. It cost me my gate, my road, and the quiet of my ranch. This land is not meant for shortcuts. It is meant for living. I gave you every chance to respect that. You chose not to. Now you will not forget." Karen pressed her lips together, her shoulders stiff. She turned back to her car, adjusting her sunglasses to hide her expression. She climbed inside, reversed slowly, and pulled away from the second gate. The first gate swung loosely as she drove back the way she had come, the dust from her tires rising in the sunlight. Sam stood by the gate watching until the car disappeared down the road. He placed his hand on the strong wood of the second gate, feeling the firmness of the structure he had built. It was not just a barrier. It was a reminder. When he walked back to the porch, Daisy followed along the fence, her steps light. Sam sat in his chair once again, lifting his coffee cup, though it had grown cold. He did not smile, but there was peace in his eyes. For the first time in many weeks, he felt the ranch was truly his again. Later that day, word began to spread. Though Karen did not speak openly about what had happened, neighbors noticed her driving the long way to town instead of through the ranch. Some asked quietly what had changed, and though Sam did not boast, a few guessed the truth from the sight of the second gate. Whispers carried from porch to porch, and soon the story grew. Sam had set a clever trap, not to harm but to teach. Karen avoided Sam for many days after. She no longer waved from her car or walked by his fence. She kept her eyes down when they crossed paths in town. Pride still held her tongue, but her actions spoke clearly. She no longer touched the ranch gate. Sam continued his days as before, waking early, tending the animals, fixing fences, and caring for the land. The gate stood quietly at the edge of the ranch, unchanged and strong. Each time Sam passed it, he felt a reminder of the lesson he had delivered, not through anger or force, but through patience and cleverness. The trap had sprung, and the message was clear. Respect was not something to be taken, it was something to be given, and now the ranch had its peace once more. The ranch stood quiet in the weeks that followed. The tall grass swayed gently in the breeze. The chickens clucked happily as they scratched at the dirt, and Daisy the horse moved slowly along the fence line. The second gate remained firm at the edge of the property, its white paint shining under the sun, a silent guardian of Sam's land. Life had settled back into a rhythm of calm, and for the first time in many months, Sam felt the true peace of his home returning. Karen no longer drove through the ranch. Each morning, Sam noticed her silver car take the long route to town, following the paved road that curved around the neighborhood. She never slowed at the ranch entrance, never tested the gate again. At first, Sam thought it might only be for a few days, that she was embarrassed and waiting for the memory of her mistake to fade. But as days turned into weeks and weeks stretched into more than a month, it became clear that something had changed in her heart. Whether she admitted it aloud or not, the neighbors began to notice the difference as well. They whispered about it during walks and spoke of it in quiet voices on their porches. Some of them had always disapproved of Karen's bold behavior, but had never dared to confront her. Now they saw her avoiding the ranch road, and they began to admire Sam's cleverness. They did not speak of it to Karen, but among themselves they agreed that Sam had handled the matter with patience and wisdom. Sam did not boast about what he had done. When asked directly, he only smiled and said the ranch was peaceful again. He had never wanted to embarrass Karen or turn the neighborhood against her. His only wish had been to protect the land and to teach respect. Now that the lesson had been learned, he saw no reason to speak more of it. Still, Karen carried the memory with her. Though she held her chin high whenever she passed Sam in town, her eyes often lowered quickly as if she hoped he would not notice her. She no longer spoke proudly of being the head of the HOA when Sam was near. The smirk she once wore when driving across his land was gone, replaced with silence. Pride kept her from apologizing, but her actions told the truth. She had been changed by the trap more than she cared to admit. One late afternoon, Sam stood by the gate checking the posts after a storm had passed. The rain had left the earth damp, and the hinges of the first gate needed oil once again. As he worked, he heard the sound of footsteps behind him. Turning, he saw Karen walking slowly down the road without her car. Her hands were folded in front of her, and her eyes moved carefully from the ground to the gate, then to Sam. For a moment, neither spoke. The ranch was quiet except for the soft dripping of rainwater from the leaves. Finally, Karen cleared her throat and said, "Sam, I came to talk." Sam set down his tools, wiping his hands on a cloth. His voice was calm. "All right. What is it you wish to say?" Karen shifted uncomfortably, her pride fighting against her words. "About what happened with the gate," she said slowly. "I know you built it to stop me, and it did. I suppose I should say, I understand now. That road is yours. It always was. I should not have used it the way I did." Sam studied her face. For weeks she had avoided admitting this truth, but now her eyes showed sincerity. He nodded gently. "Thank you for saying that. It is not easy to admit when we are wrong. Karen looked down again, her voice softer. I thought I was only saving time. I did not think about how it affected you or the land or the animals. I thought only of myself. When I hit that second gate, it was surprising, but it made me realize I had ignored every chance you gave me to stop. That was not fair to you. Sam's voice carried no anger, only steady kindness. I tried to warn you many times. I did not want to embarrass you. I only wanted peace. The ranch has been in my family for a long time. It is not just land to me. It is part of who I am. Karen nodded slowly. I see that now. She paused as if searching for the right words. I am sorry, Sam. I should not have treated your ranch like a shortcut. I should have respected your boundaries. Sam gave a small smile. Apology accepted. What matters is that the lesson is learned. I hold no anger against you. Karen lifted her eyes at last, and though her pride still lingered, there was relief in her face. She gave a short nod, then turned to walk back toward her home. Sam watched her go, his heart lighter than it had been in many months. The storm between them had passed at last. From that day forward, life in the neighborhood changed in small but noticeable ways. Karen, once quick to boast and command, became quieter in her dealings with others. She still led the HOA, but she spoke more carefully and listened more often. The neighbors noticed the shift and found it easier to live with her. Perhaps the second gate had taught her more than just respect for Sam's land. Perhaps it had taught her humility as well. For Sam, the ranch grew peaceful once again. Each morning he rose to feed the animals, the sunrise spilling gold across the fields. He checked the fences, mended what needed mending, and walked along the road without fear of tire tracks cutting through his land. The gate stood tall, one swinging freely, the other firmly fixed. Together a reminder of the long struggle and its resolution. The lesson was not only for Karen, it was for Sam as well. He had learned that patience had limits, but wisdom guided those limits. He had learned that standing firm did not mean causing harm, and that a clever plan could succeed where anger failed. Most of all, he had learned that peace was worth protecting, even when it required effort and creativity. One evening, as Sam sat on his porch, Daisy grazing quietly nearby, he thought of his grandfather and father. He imagined them looking down on the ranch, nodding with pride. The land had remained in good hands. The respect of the past carried into the present. The gate stood not only as wood and iron, but as a symbol of that respect, passed down through the generations. The stars appeared one by one in the sky, the night air cool and gentle. Sam leaned back in his chair, his heart steady, his mind calm. The ranch was safe. The lesson had been taught, and peace once shaken had been restored.